Genesis again the other day. I had just started reading the book of Genesis. The Spirit just told me to just, start reading the whole Bible again. You know what I mean? So, and start doing it here more on YouTube. I want to, build up my community more here on YouTube. So, y'all know I usually go live on TikTok, but we here on YouTube. But anyways, again, so we finished off with Genesis chapter 6. So today I'm going to be reading Genesis chapter 7. And again, I always just let the Spirit lead me to see how far I'm going to read. So we're going to see how far we get. But we're going to start off in Genesis chapter 7. So if y'all want to go ahead and turn to Genesis chapter 7, I'm going to go ahead and start reading. And it says, Then the Lord said to Noah, Go into the ark, you and your whole family, because I have found you righteous in this generation. Take with you 7 pairs of every kind of clean animal, a male and its mate, and 1 pair of every kind of unclean animal, a male and its mate, and also 7 pairs of every kind of bird, male and female, to keep their various kinds alive throughout the earth. 7 days from now I will send rain on the earth for 40 days and 40 nights, and I will wipe from the face of the earth every living creature I have made. Verse 5, and Noah did all that the Lord commanded him. Right? We know Noah was obviously an obedient man. Noah was 600 years old when the flood waters came on the earth, and Noah and his sons and his wife and his sons' wives entered the ark to escape the waters of the flood. Pairs of clean and unclean animals, of birds, and all creatures that move along the ground, male and female, came to Noah and entered the ark, as God had commanded Noah. And after the 7 days, the flood waters came on the earth. In the 600th year of Noah's life, on the 17th day of the 2nd month, on the day that all the springs of the great deep burst forth and the floodgates of heaven were open, and rain fell on the earth 40 days and 40 nights. That's significant right there, that 40 days and 40 nights, because we know that Christ, he fasted for 40 days and 40 nights. He was tempted 40 days and 40 nights as well, right? So that 40 days is pretty interesting. And even when you think about just reading that again, I don't know the significance of it, but even when after Christ's resurrection, right, he showed himself to his disciples. I believe it was 40 days that he showed himself to his disciples after he resurrected. So I think that's pretty cool too. With Genesis chapter 7, verse 13. On that very day, Noah and his sons, Shem, Ham, and Japheth, together with his wife and the wives of his 3 sons, entered the ark. They had with them every wild animal according to its kind, all livestock according to their kinds, every creature that moves along the ground according to its kind, and every bird according to its kind. Everything with wings. Pairs of all creatures that have the breath of life in them came to Noah and entered the ark. The animals going in were male and female of every living creature as God had commanded Noah. Then the Lord shut him in. Verse 17 of Genesis chapter 7. For 40 days the flood kept coming on the earth, and as the waters increased, they lifted the ark above the earth. The waters rose and increased greatly on the earth, and the ark floated on the surface of the water. They rose greatly on the earth, and all the high mountains under the heavens were covered. The waters rose. What's going on, Mansion Music? The waters rose and covered the mountains to a depth of more than 15 cubits. Every living thing that moved on land perished, birds, livestock, wild animals, all the creatures that swarm over the earth, and all mankind. Everything on dry land that had breath of life in its nostrils died. Every living thing on the face of the earth was wiped out. People and animals and the creatures that move along the ground and the birds were wiped from the earth. Only Noah was left and those with him in the ark. The waters flooded the earth for 150 days. 150 days. What's going on? Sorry if I say your name right. I'm guessing it's Iris Sierra. What's going on, Iris Sierra? But y'all, we just read the book of Genesis chapter 7. Right, and we see that the waters flooded the earth for 150 days. God was sick of the wickedness that was going on in the earth, and so he got rid of everybody. He was sick of the wickedness. It was a lot of evil going on. You had the fallen angels coming down and getting with the daughters of men and having big giants with them. So God was sick of the wickedness in this world, right? So we're in Genesis chapter 8. But God remembered Noah and all the wild animals and the livestock that were with him in the ark. And he sent a wind over the earth, and the waters receded. Now the springs of the deep and the floodgates of the heavens had been closed, and the rain had stopped falling from the sky. The waters receded steadily from the earth. At the end of 150 days, the waters had gone down. And on the 17th day of the 7th month, the ark came to rest on the mountains of Ararat. The waters continued to recede until the 10th month, and on the first day of the 10th month, the tops of the mountains became visible. After 40 days, verse 6, after 40 days, Noah opened a window he had made in the ark and sent out a raven and kept flying back and forth until the water had dried up from the earth. Right. So that was how Noah tested to see if the waters were dried up by just using them birds. Verse 8. Then he sent out a dove to see if the water had receded from the surface of the ground. But the dove could find nowhere to perch because there was water all over the surface of the earth. So it returned to Noah in the ark. He reached out his hand and took the dove and brought it back to himself in the ark. He waited 7 more days and again sent out the dove from the ark. Right. When the dove returned to him in the evening, there in his beak was a freshly plucked olive leaf. Right. Then Noah knew that the waters had receded from the earth. He waited 7 more days and sent out the dove again, but this time it did not return. Right. So that was that was how obviously how Noah was to see if God had removed the waters from the earth. He would send out the dove, the raven, to see if they would come back. And 3 times they didn't come back. They couldn't find no land. Sent them out again. They came back again. They had some leaves. So he knew, like, okay, the water's starting to recede down after the flood. Right. So that's what Noah is doing. And then once he waited 7 more days, he was like, okay, I'm gonna send this dove out one more time to see if the water is gone from the earth. So this time the dove never returned. So since the dove didn't return back to the ark, he knew, okay, now we can get off the ark. Now we can get off because now it's dry ground. So that's how he knew. But Genesis chapter 8 and verse 13. By the first day of the month of Noah's 601st year, the water had dried up from the earth. Noah then removed the covering from the ark and saw that the surface of the ground was dry. By the 27th day of the second month, the earth was completely dry. Right? Again, I said the 27th day of the second month, the earth was completely dry. Verse 15. Then God said to Noah, come out of the ark, you and your wife and your sons and their wives. Bring out every kind of living creature that is with you, the birds, the animals, and all the creatures that move along the ground, so they can multiply on the earth and be fruitful and increase in number. Verse 18. So Noah came out together with his sons, his wife, and his sons' wives, all the animals and all the creatures that move along the ground and all the birds. Everything that moves on land came out of the ark, one kind after another. Verse 20. Then Noah built an altar to the Lord, and taking some of all the clean animals and clean birds, he sacrificed burnt offerings on it. The Lord smelled the pleasing aroma and said in his heart, never again will I curse the ground because of humans, even though every inclination of the human heart is evil from childhood. And never again will I destroy all living creatures as I have done. Right. So here's a promise that God is going to make for us, though. Right. Verse 22. As long as the earth endures, seed time and harvest time, cold and heat, summer and winter, day and night will never cease. Right. So that was a promise. He said, I'll read that one more time. That was a promise that he made to us. As long as the earth endures, seed time and harvest time, cold and heat, summer and winter, day and night will never cease. So he says the seasons are always going to go on. Right. So we're in Genesis chapter 9. Genesis chapter 9. And it says, then God blessed Noah and his sons, saying to them, be fruitful and increase in number and fill the earth. The fear and dread of you will fall on all the beasts of the earth and all the birds in the sky, on every creature that moves along the ground, and on all the fish in the sea. They are given into your hands. Everything that lives and moves about will be food for you. Just as I gave you the green plants, now I'll give you everything. But you must not eat meat that has its lifeblood still in it. And for your lifeblood, I will surely demand an accountant. All right, so God says, basically you got to clean the animals. I will demand an accountant from every animal, and each human being too. I will demand an accountant for the life of another human being. Whoever sheds human blood, by humans shall their blood be shed. For to the image of God has God made mankind. As for you, be fruitful and increase in number, multiply on the earth and increase upon it. Verse 8. Then God said to Noah and to his sons with him, I now establish my covenant with you and with your descendants after you, with every living creature that was with you, the birds, the livestock, and all the wild animals, all those that came out of the ark with you, every living creature on earth. I will establish my covenant with you. Never again will all life be destroyed by the waters of a flood. Never again will there be a flood to destroy the earth. Right? So that is the covenant that God makes with all mankind, with the earth, that he's never going to flood the earth again. So if the earth was destroyed again, it will not be by water. Right? He's going to show you the sign of why that is. Right? And God said, this is the sign of the covenant I am making between me and you and every living creature with you, a covenant for all generations to come. I have set my rainbow in the clouds, right? I have set my rainbow in the clouds. So some people know that, but some people don't. That is God's covenant with the earth. So after you see it rain, right? After you see it rain, that's why you see a rainbow, right? You see a rainbow in the sky. That's God's covenant that, hey, even though it just rained, I'm never going to flood the earth again. I'll never do that again. So he says, I have set my rainbow in the clouds. It will be the sign of the covenant between me and the earth. Whenever I bring clouds over the earth, and when I bring clouds over the earth and the rainbow appears in the clouds, I will remember my covenant between me and you and all living creatures of every kind. Never again will the waters become a flood to destroy all life. Whenever the rainbow appears in the clouds, I will see it and remember the everlasting covenant between God and all living creatures of every kind on earth. Verse 17. So God said to Noah, "This is the sign of the covenant I have established between me and all life on earth." Verse 18. The sons of Noah who come out of the ark were Shem, Ham, and Japheth. Ham was the father of Canaan. These were the three sons of Noah, and from them came the people who scattered over the whole earth. Noah, a man of soil, proceeded to plant a vineyard. When he drank some of his wine, he became drunk and lay uncovered inside his tent. Ham, the father of Canaan, saw his father naked and told his two brothers outside. But Shem and Japheth took a garment and laid it across their shoulders. Then they walked backward and covered their father's naked body. Their faces were turned the other way so that they would not see their father naked. When Noah woke from his wine and found out what his youngest son had done to him, he said, "Cursed be Canaan, the lowest of slaves will he be to his brother." So we see that Ham was cursed. He also said, "Praise be to the Lord, the God of Shem. May Canaan be the slaves of Shem. May God extend Japheth's territory. May Japheth live in the tents of Shem. And may Canaan be the slave of Japheth." After the flood, Noah lived 350 years. Noah lived a total of 950 years, then he died. Dang, Noah lived a long time. 950 years. Amen to that. But we are now in Genesis chapter 10. Genesis chapter 10. All right, and it says, "This is the account of Shem, Ham, and Japheth, Noah's sons, who themselves had sons after the flood, the Japhites." Right. And I'm not going to go through all of these, when they talk about their lineages, y'all, I'm not going to go through all of those different type of names. But you can see they're talking about some of the Japhites and all the lineage of them. Verse 6, you see the Hamites. You can see like Cush and Egypt, right? You see those type of, nations. But I'll jump down to verse 8 of Genesis 10. Cush was the father of Nimrod, who became a mighty warrior on the earth. He was a mighty hunter before the Lord. That is why it is said, like Nimrod, a mighty hunter before the Lord. The first centers of his kingdom were Babylon, Uruk, Akkad, and Calneh, and Shinar. From that he went to Assyria, where he built Nineveh, Rehoboth, Keilah, Rezin, which is between Nineveh and Keilah, which is the great city, right? Egypt was the father of you can see some of these fathers, again, I'm not going to read all those, but Nimrod was a very important character. You can actually read a little bit more about Nimrod in the Apocrypha, right? But I'm going to jump down to the bottom of verse 18. Later, the Canaanite clan scattered, and the borders of Canaan reached from Sidon toward Gerar as far as Gaza, and then toward Sodom, Gomorrah, Admah, and Zeboiim as far as Lasha. These are the sons of Ham by their clans and languages and their territories and the nations. Verse 21. Sons were also born to Shem, whose older brother was Japheth. Shem was the ancestor of all the sons of Eber. Right, and again, you can see a lot of the lineage right there. Y'all can go through them yourself. I'm going to jump down to verse 30. The region where they lived stretched from Mesha toward Saphar and the eastern hill country. These are the sons of Shem by their clans and languages and their territories and nations. These are the clans of Noah's sons according to their lines of descent within their nations. From these nations spread out over the earth after the flood, right? So they're now, multiplying and increasing like God told them to do. All right, so Genesis chapter 11. Now the whole world had one language and a common speech. As the people eastward, they found a plain in Shinar and settled there. So again, you can see it says again, at this time, the whole world had one language. What language was that? I mean, we don't really know. But during this time, there was one language. And we're going to find out why God created so many languages. Why do people speak so many languages? It's all right here in the Bible. So verse 3, they said to each other, "Come, let's make bricks and bake them thoroughly." They used bricks instead of stone and tartar for mortar. Then they said, "Come, let us build ourselves a city with a tower that reaches to the heavens, so that we may make a name for ourselves. Otherwise, we would be scattered over the face of the whole earth." So that's what they were trying to do. They were trying to build up a whole tower to get to the heavens, right? They were trying to get to God. And you can see guys like Elon Musk doing that today, shooting rockets up into the sky and into the heavens, trying to, do whatever they're trying to do, but you can't get past the firmament. Verse 5. But the Lord came down to see the city and the tower the people were building. The Lord said, "It if as one people speaking the same language they have begun to do this, then nothing they plan to do will be impossible for them. Come, let us go down and confuse their language so that they would not understand each other." So that's what God did. God confused our language to not be able to understand each other. Right? So now they can't work together at all. Verse 10. Is that where we're at? Verse 10. Oh, I'm sorry. Verse 8. Sorry, verse 8. So the Lord scattered them from there over the earth, and they stopped building the city because they couldn't understand each other no more. So they stopped building the city, and that's why it is called Babel, because the Lord confused the language of the whole world. From the Lord scattered them over the face of the whole earth. I think that what's funny about that, and I never thought about this before since I've been studying the Bible, is Babel. Like, it makes me think about all that it sounded like they were babbling to each other. You know what I mean? I'm not saying that's why it's called Babel. Maybe it is, but they were babbling. They couldn't understand each other's language, so they had to stop building the tower. Verse 10. This is the account of Shem's family line. 2 years after the flood, when Shem was 100 years old, he became the father of Arphaxad. And after he became the father of Arphaxad, Shem lived 500 years and had sons and daughters. When Arphaxad had lived 35 years, he became the father of Shelah. And after he became the father of Shelah, Arphaxad lived 403 years and had other sons and daughters. When I'll say Shelah, had lived 30 years, he became the father of Eber. And after he became the father of Eber, Shelah lived 403 years and had other sons and daughters. When Eber had lived 34 years, he became the father of Peleg. All right. And I'm gonna come and skip down again. I'm not gonna go too deep into the lineages, y'all. I'm not gonna bore y'all with that. Um, so I'll, especially if it's not, big characters. I will read verse 26 because this is some big characters coming up that we're going to talk about later on. So Genesis chapter 11, verse 26. After Terah had lived 70 years, he became the father of Abram, Nahor, and Haran, right? So I want to jump to that part. Verse 27. This is the account of Terah's family line. Terah became the father of Abram, Nahor, and Haran. And Haran became the father of Lot, right? So two big characters we're going to hear about later on. While his father Terah was still alive, Haran died in Ur of the Chaldeans, the land of his birth. Abram and Nahor both married. The name of Abram's wife was Sarai, and the name of Nahor's wife was Milcah. She was a daughter of Haran, the father of both Milcah and Iscah. Now Sarai was childless because she was not able to conceive. Terah took his son Abram, his grandson Lot, son of Haran, and his daughter-in-law Sarai, the wife of his son Abram, and together they set out from Ur of the Chaldeans to go to Canaan. But when they came to Haran, they settled there. Terah lived 205 years, and he died in Haran. Right, and you can read a little bit more about Terah and Abram's story, a little bit more, and also in the Apocrypha, which would be in the book of Jasher. All right, so now I'm in Genesis chapter 12 again. I don't know how far we're going to get, but we're going to keep going because now we're talking about Abram. And it says, and the Lord has said to Abram, go from your country, your people, and your father's household to the land where I will show you. I will make you into a great nation, and I will bless you, and I will make your name great. And with you would be a blessing. I will bless those who bless you. I will curse whoever curses you will I curse, and all the peoples on the earth will be blessed through you. Verse 4. So Abram went as the Lord had told him, and Lot went with him. Right. And you see right there, Abram didn't make no discussion. He didn't argue. He didn't go back and forth with God like, God, why you want me to leave? No, he was obedient. He did what God told him to do. And plus his dad, if you read a little bit more about his father, they were in idolatry, right? They believed in other gods and, in false gods. So he knew he had to leave that land, right? And follow the one true God. So verse 4. So Abram went as the Lord had told him, and Lot went with him. That would be his nephew. Abram was 75 years old when he set out for Haran. He took his wife Sarai, his nephew Lot, all the possessions they had accumulated, and the people they had acquired in Haran. And they set out for the land of Canaan, and they arrived there. Abram traveled through the land as far as the site of the great tree of Moreh at Shechem. At that time, the Canaanites were in the land. The Lord appeared to Abram and said, to your offspring I will give this land. So he built an altar there to the Lord who had appeared to him. From there he went on toward the hills east of Bethel and pitched his tent with Bethel on the west and Ai on the east. There he built an altar to the Lord and called on the name of the Lord. Then Abram set out and continued toward the Negev. All right, we in verse 10 now of Genesis chapter 12. Now there was a famine in the land, and Abram went down to Egypt to live there for a while because the famine was severe. Egypt is it's just such a big nation in the Bible, especially early on. You talking about the Israelites who were there, Joseph, even Joseph, Mary, and Jesus had to go down to Egypt, right? Egypt is a big country in the Bible. Verse 11, as he was about to enter Egypt, he said to his wife Sarai, I know what a beautiful woman you are. When the Egyptians see you, they will say, this is his wife. Then they will kill me, but they will let you live. So you are my sister, so that I will be treated well for your sake, and my life will be spared because of you. So that was the way he had to finesse the Egyptians. And he's like, hey, they gonna basically take you from me, baby. They gonna take you away from me, and they gonna take my life. So we're gonna have to finesse these folks and tell them you my sister, right? So they won't unalive me. They won't do nothing to me, right? Verse 14. When Abram came to Egypt, the Egyptians saw that Sarai was a very beautiful woman. So Sarai was probably a baddie. And when Pharaoh's officials saw her, they praised her to Pharaoh, and she was taken into his palace. He treated Abram well for her sake, and Abram acquired sheep and cattle, male and female donkeys, male and female servants, and camels. But the Lord inflicted serious diseases on Pharaoh and his household became because of Abram's wife Sarai. Right. So Pharaoh summoned Abram. What have you done to me? He said. Why didn't you tell me she was your wife? Why did you say she is my sister? So that I took her to be my wife. Now then, here's your wife. Take her and go. Then Pharaoh gave orders about Abram to his man, and they sent him on his way with his wife and everything he had. Right. So basically, you see Abram kind of finesse him and Sarai kind of finessed Pharaoh and the Egyptians, right? He was able to stay alive, but he also left with some sheep and some cattle and a little bit of money, right? But that was the only way he was going to be able to get through Egypt and do what he needed to do, right? But you see, the Lord, that's what I said, the Lord is always in control. The Lord, right, he's the one who did that. It says the Lord inflicted serious diseases on Pharaoh and his household, right? And they knew that God was real. They knew, like, wait, oh, something greater did this to us, right? So yeah. Chapter 13, Genesis chapter 13. Abram and Lot separate. So Abram went up from Egypt to Negev with his wife and everything he had, and Lot went with him. Abram had become very wealthy in livestock and in silver and gold. All right, so you see, man, a lot of these men in the Bible were very wealthy men. Abram was a very wealthy man, right? It says right there he had become very wealthy in livestock and in silver and in gold, right? So again, it's not God's. God don't want us. God does not want us out here to be poor, lacking or anything like that. No, 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 no. Verse 3. From the Negev, he went from the place to place until he came to Bethel, to the place between Bethel and Ai, where his tent had been earlier, right, and where he had first built the altar. There Abram called on the name of the Lord. Now Lot, who was moving about with Abram, also had flocks and herds and tents, but the land could not support them while they stayed together, for the possessions were so great that they were not able to stay together. All right, so Abram and Lot had so much money, they had so much cattle, they had so much stuff. They was like, bro, all right, you got to get your own place, bro. Basically, like, you got to get your own spotlight. We're gonna have to separate. We can't have the same place. You know what I mean? I got too much, you got too much, bro. Go ahead and do your own thing, right? Verse 8. So Abram said to Lot, let's not have any quarreling between me and you, or between your herders and mine, for we are close relatives. So he was like, all right, let's not argue about it, bro. Because, I'm taking up your space, you and your people taking up my space. We ain't even got to argue about it. Let's figure out how we finna do this, right? Because we family. Basically, we family. Verse 9, is not the whole land before you? Let's part company. If you go to the left, I'll go to the right. If you go to the right, I'll go to the left. So we like, I go this way, you go that way, right? Verse 10, Lot looked around and saw that the whole plain of the Jordan toward Zoar was well watered, like the garden of the Lord, like the land of Egypt. This was before the Lord destroyed Sodom and Gomorrah, right? So that's what eventually where Lot would go, to Sodom and Gomorrah, right? Verse 11, so Lot chose for himself the whole plain of the Jordan and set out toward the east. The two men parted company. Abram lived in the land of Canaan, while Lot lived among the cities of the plain and pitched his tents towards Sodom. All right. Now the people of Sodom were wicked and were sinning greatly against the Lord. The Lord said to Abram after Lot had parted from him, look around from here where you are, to the north and the south, to the east and west. All the land that you see, I will give to you and your offspring forever. I will make your offspring like the dust of the earth, so that if anyone could count the dust, then your offspring would be counted. Go, walk through the length and the breadth of the earth, of the land, for I am giving it to you. So Abram went to live near the great trees of Mamre at Hebron, where he pitched his tent. There he built an altar to the Lord. Right. So now we are in Genesis chapter 14 right now. And again, we're going to just keep going. We're going to keep going. All right. And so it says, at that time, when Amraphel was king of Shinar, Arioch king of Elazar, Kedalomer king of Elam, and Tidal king of Goyim, these kings went to war against Bera king of Sodom, Bersha king of Gomorrah, Shinab king of Admah, right? Shemabor king of Zibeon, and king of Bela. All these latter kings joined forces in the valley of Siddim, that is the Dead Sea Valley, right? For 12 years, they had been subject to Kedalomer, but in the 13th year, they rebelled. Verse 5. In the 14th year, Kedalomer and the kings allied with him went out and defeated the Rephites and Ashator Canarm, the Zuzites and Ham, the Emites and Sheva Kirtharim. Y'all know I'm trying to get through these names. Y'all bear with me. And the Horites in the hill of country of Seir, as far as El Paran in the desert. Then they turned back and went to in Mishpat, that is Kadesh, and they conquered the whole territory of the Amalekites, as well as the Amorites who were living in Hazazon Tamar. Right, a lot of battle, a lot of wars going on. Verse 8. Then the king of Sodom, the king of Gomorrah, the king of Admah, and the king of Zobium, and the king of Bela marched out and drew up their battle lines in the valley of Siddim against Kedalomer, king of Elam, Tidal, king of Goyim, Amraphel, king of Shinar, and Arioch, king of Elasar. For 4 kings against 5. Now the valley of Siddim was full of tar pits when the kings of Sodom and Gomorrah fled. Some of the men fell into them, and the rest fled to the hills. The 4 kings seized all the goods of Sodom and Gomorrah and their food. Then they went away. They also carried off Abram's nephew Lot and his possessions, since he was living in Sodom. Right? So again, we are in Genesis chapter 14. Now we are in verse 13. So we just see basically them folks, they done ran up on Lot now. They took all their possessions and, took down Sodom and Gomorrah. And now, Lot is enslaved, so Abram got to go take care and save his nephew, right? Gospel of Genesis 5. What about Genesis 5? We already read Genesis 5, but tell me about it though. Genesis 13. Genesis 14 and verse 13. A man who had escaped came and reported this to Abram, the Hebrew. Now Abram was living near the great trees of Mamre the Amorite, a brother of Eshcol, Anor, and all who were allied with Abram. Right? Verse 14. When Abram heard that his relative had been taken captive, he called out the 318 trained men born in his household and went in pursuit as far as Dan. During the night, Abram divided his men to attack them, and he routed them, pursuing them as far as Hobah, north of Damascus. He recovered all the goods and brought back his relative Lot and his possessions, together with the women and the other people. So you see, Abram had some soldiers with him. He had some real soldiers. Verse 17. Okay. After Abram returned from defeating Kedalomer and the kings. What's up, Kimberly? I'm just up here just reading, just reading the whole Bible, really. After Abram returned from defeating Kedalomer and the kings allied with him, the king of Sodom came out to meet him in the valley of Shaveh, that is the king's valley. Then Melchizedek, king of Salem, brought out bread and wine. He was priest of God Most High, and he blessed Abram, saying, Blessed be Abram by God Most High, creator of heaven and earth, and praise be to God Most High, who deliver your enemies into your land. Yeah, I know who you. Yeah, Kim, I know that's you. I know that's you. Then Abram gave a tenth of everything. Gave him a tenth of everything. Man, you see that right there? That's a kingdom principle right there. I've been talking about that a lot. Again, I was talking about the Bible is about a kingdom, but that's a kingdom principle that Abram just did right there. That's one of the laws of giving. Abram got all that stuff, but then he says, then Abram gave a tenth of everything. Right? Paying your tithes, being a good giver, man. That's how you keep that money keep flowing to you. That's how you get blessed, by tithing. So that's what he did, and it was a tenth or something. Verse 21, but don't give your tax returns like that pastor told that church to do. Anyway, the king of Sodom said to Abram, give me the people and keep the goods for yourself. But Abram said to the king of Sodom, with raised hand, I have sworn an oath to the Lord, God Most High, creator of heaven and earth, that I will accept nothing belonging to you, not even a thread or the strap of a sandal, so that you will never be able to say, I made Abram rich. I will accept nothing but what man have eaten in the share that belongs to the men who went with me. To Anor, Eshcol, and Mamre, let them have their share. So that man didn't even want to give anything to Abram. You know what I mean? Because he didn't want to take no credit for why Abram was rich, right? Because God wanted to get that credit of why Abram was rich. So he was like, bro, God told me not to take nothing from you, bro. All that is yours, Abram. You got it. You know what I mean? So he wanted God to have that glory. But Genesis chapter 15. Uh, After this, the word of the Lord came to Abram in a vision. Do not be afraid, Abram. I am your shield, your very great reward. But Abram said, Sovereign Lord, what can you give me since I remain childless and the one who will inherit my estate in Elazar of Damascus? And Abram said, You have given me no children, so a servant in my household will be my heir. All right. Then the word of the Lord came to him. This man will not be your heir, but a son who is your own flesh and blood will be your heir. He took him outside and said, Look up at the sky and count the stars. If indeed you can count them, then he said, So shall your offspring be. So he's telling Abram again, Hey, look up to the sky. Look at all those stars. Can you count them? Basically, no, you can't count all those stars. And God is like saying, basically, well, that's how your kids gonna be. That's how your offspring gonna be. You gonna have so many kids or so many people that's coming through your lineage, through your seed, through your offspring that they ain't gonna be able to count them, right? They are not going to be able to count them, right? Because you're going to obviously have Isaac and Jacob and the 12 tribes and even Ishmael and all his people, right? So many people come obviously from Abram, right? So God's like your offspring is going to be like the stars in the sky, or sometimes he refers to as the sand of the sea. You can't count the sand in the sea; it's too much. That's how Abram's offspring is going to be, right? Verse 6 of Genesis chapter 15. Abram believed the Lord, and he um, credited him as righteousness. He also said to him, I am the Lord who brought you out of the Chaldeans to give you this land to take in possession of it. But Abram said, Sovereign Lord, how can I know that I will gain possession of it? So the Lord said to him, Bring me a heifer, a goat, and a ram, each 3 years old, along with a dove and a young pigeon. Verse 10. Abram brought all these to him, cut them in two, and arranged the halves. Obviously, these sheltered the birds, however, he did not cut in half. Then birds of prey came down on the carcasses, but Abram drove them away. As the sun was setting, Abram fell into a deep sleep, and a thick and dreadful darkness came over him. No, this is just a random live, Kimmy. This is something different. This is just something I'm doing on YouTube. I'm really just reading the Bible from start to, I'm just reading the whole Bible, Kimmy. So it's not really like a Bible study. I'm really just doing a reading, just for YouTube only. I just hopped on at a random time, honestly. I just hopped on. But yeah, it says in verse 12, as the sun was setting, Abram fell into a deep sleep, and a thick and dreadful darkness came over him. Then the Lord said to him, Know for certain that for 400 years your descendants will be strangers in a country not their own, and that they will be enslaved and mistreated there. Right? So you see again, that's the vision that God gave Abram, was that his descendants will be slaves in the land that's not theirs for 400 years. When would that happen? That would happen when the Israelites will end up going into Egypt, right? This is prophecy, and we know that would be fulfilled. And also, we know another group of people that went into slavery and were oppressed for 400 years, and they so happen to live in the United States of America. But we ain't gonna go too far in that. But hey, you just you put the pieces together, and you tell me, ain't nothing new under the sun. So we know the Israelites will be in Egypt for 400 years, and we were in here in America for 400 years. Then the Lord said to him, Know for certain that for 400 years your descendants will be strangers in a country not their own, and that they will be enslaved and mistreated there. But I will punish the nation that they serve as slaves, and afterward they will come out with great possessions. So that's also a prophecy that, hey, they're gonna come out with great possessions. Though I'm gonna give them the land of the milk and honey. Right? Moses will bring your people out. Basically, a prophecy that all these things will happen, and that's what the Bible is a lot about, though. God foretelling something, right? Giving somebody a vision or a dream, and then that vision or dream eventually coming to pass, right? Whatever the Lord says is going to happen, it's going to happen. Genesis chapter 15, verse 15. You, however, will go to your ancestors in peace and be buried at a good old age. In the fourth generation, your descendants will come back here. For the sin of the Amorites have you yet reached its full measure. When the sun had set and darkness had fallen, a smoking fire pit with a blazing torch appeared and passed between the pieces. On that day, the Lord made a covenant with Abram and said, To your descendants I give this land, for the Wadi of Egypt to the great river, the Euphrates, the land of Kenites, Kenizzites, Cadmonites, Hittites, Perizzites, Rephites, Amorites, Kenites, Girgashites, and Jebusites. All right, and that right there was Genesis chapter 15. We are now going into Genesis chapter 16. All right, Genesis 16. And again, y'all can I get an amen? I know I don't usually do YouTube live, but can I get an amen in the chat if y'all would like to do that? Sorry, y'all. Amen in chat, y'all. As we go to Genesis chapter 16, again, I'm not sure how far I'm going to get, but we're just going to keep reading though. So again, we see I got obviously the Lord is obviously with Abram right now. Now Sarai, Abram's wife, had borne him no children, but she had an Egyptian slave named Hagar. So she said to Abram, "The Lord have kept me from having children. Go sleep with my slave. Perhaps I can build a family through her." You sure you want to do that, Sarai? Abram agreed to what Sarai said. So Abram had been living in the Canaan 10 years. Sarai, his wife, took her Egyptian slave Hagar and gave her to her husband to be his wife. He slept with Hagar and she conceived. When she was pregnant, she began to despise her mistress, right? Then Sarai said to Abram, "You are responsible for the wrong I am suffering. I put my slave in your arms, and now that she knows she is pregnant, she despises me. May the Lord judge, may the Lord judge between you and me." Well, Sarai, this was your idea. How you gonna get mad at me? This was your idea, Sarai. You told me to get with your female slave. That wasn't my idea. That was your idea, right? So now she mad at him. Verse 6, your slave is in your hands, Abram said. Do with her whatever you think best. Then Sarai mistreated Hagar, so she fled from her. Then the angel of the Lord found Hagar near a spring in the desert. It was the spring that is beside the road to shore. And he said, "Hagar, slave of Sarai, where have you come from and where are you going?" "I'm running away from my mistress Sarai," she answered. Then the angel of the Lord told her, "Go back to your mistress and submit to her." The angel added, "I will increase your descendants much that they will be too numerous to count." So that was a blessing that he actually gave to the slave girl. You know what I mean? Hagar, he gave her a blessing. This was her blessing again. "I will increase your descendants so that much that they will be too numerous to count." So that was a blessing he gave her. The angel of the Lord also said to her, "You are now pregnant. You are now pregnant, and you will give birth to a son." And the reason why God blessed the woman because because of Abram, right? And he already told Abram, "I'm gonna bless you. All the people are gonna be blessed through you, bro." So that's why he was like, "Okay, well, if Abram is blessed and his seed goes through you, then Hagar, you also got to be blessed, and your descendants got to be blessed because of Abram, right?" Verse 11 again, the angel of the Lord also said to her, "You are now pregnant, and you will give birth to a son. You shall call his name Ishmael, for the Lord has heard of your misery. He will be a wild donkey of a man. His hand will be against everyone, and everyone's hand against him. He will live in hostility toward all his brothers." Um, and if you look at the history of that, I believe, they're called Ishmael, they're called the Ishmaelites, right? When you hear the word ites, Ishmaelites, Israelites, you see like the Canaanites, Philistines, these type of things. That just means the people of. You know what I mean? That's all it means. It's one word, and then the ites is like a separate word. It's like a what you call that, a suffix. It just means the people of. So you're gonna have through Ishmael, you're gonna have the Ishmaelites, who they say are the so-called like the Arabs today. But y'all can look that up for yourself. But I believe the Ishmael or the Ishmaelites will be the Arabians of today, the Arabs of today. But y'all can look that up for yourself. Verse 13. She gave this name to the Lord who spoke to her. "You are the God who sees me," for she said, I have now seen the one who sees me. That is why the well was called Bir Lahai Ro. It is still there between Kadesh and Barad. So Hagar bore Abram a son, and Abram gave the name Ishmael to the son she had born. Abram was 86 years old when Hagar bore him Ishmael. So Abram just had his first little son. But the question is the covenant or is the promise going to go through Ishmael, right? Is the promise going to go through Ishmael, right? Genesis chapter 17, verse 1. When Abram was 99 years old, the Lord appeared to him and said, right, and this is 13 years later. 13 years later, right? So he had his son, what was that, 86? Now he's 99. "I am God Almighty. Walk before me faithfully and be blameless. Then I will make my covenant between me and you and will greatly increase your numbers." Abram fell face down, and God said to him, As for me, this is my covenant with you. You will be the father of many nations." Right? No longer will you be called Abram. Your name will be Abraham. There it is right there. That's when Abram's name was changed to Abraham. right? For I have made you a father of many nations. But he had to get that title. A lot of obedience and discipline to God. You know what I mean? Listening to God and doing what God told him to do. I will make you fruitful. I will make you very fruitful. I will make you nations of you, and kings will come from you. And I will establish my covenant as an everlasting covenant between me and you and your descendants after you for the generation to come, to be your God and the God of your descendants after you. The whole land of Canaan, where you now reside as a foreigner, I will give an everlasting possession to you and your descendants after you, and I will be their God. Verse 9. Then God said to Abraham, as for you, you must keep my covenant, you and your descendants after you for the generation to come, right? So God is always giving us commands. Hey, you must follow my covenant. You must follow my commands. Obedience. That's the main one of the main things God be wanting is obedience, right? This is my covenant between you and your descendants after you, the covenant you are to keep. Every male among you shall be circumcised. You are to undergo circumcision, and it will be the sign of the covenant between me and you. For the generation to come, every male among you who is 8 days old must be circumcised, including those born in your household or brought with money from a foreigner, those who are not your offspring. Whether born in your household or bought with your money, they must be circumcised. My covenant in your flesh is to be an everlasting covenant. Any uncircumcised male who has not been circumcised in the flesh will be cut off from his people. He has broken my covenant. God also said to Abraham, as for Sarai, your wife, you are no longer to call her Sarai. Her name will be Sarah. I will bless her and will surely give you a son by her. I will bless her so that she will be the mother of nations. Kings of people will come from her. So that is the blessing that God gave Sarai, whose name will be changed to Sarah. He said, I'm going to bless her, right? So now, and he said she's going to have a baby. So that was the prophecy that he gave Abraham, and Sarah. Verse 17, Abraham fell face down. He laughed and said to himself, will a son be born to a man 100 years old? What did Abraham do? Abraham laughed. He laughed, right? He said, I'm going to read that again. He said he fell to his face. That was verse 17. Abraham fell face down. He laughed and said to himself, will a son be born to a man 100 years old? I mean, you can't really blame Abraham. I mean, if you're 100 years old, I mean, I wouldn't be expecting to have no kid either. You know what I mean? At 100 years old, I'm like, God, you got to be kidding, right? I'm 100 years old. My wife is like 90. You're saying we're going to have a baby? Okay. All right. But we are in are we in the bottom of verse 17? Will Sarah bear a child at the age of 90, right? And Abraham said to God, if only Ishmael might live under your blessing. So, you see that right there? Abraham said to God, if only Ishmael might live under your blessing. So Abraham, right, he didn't believe God. What's going on? Just sent to Abraham wanted to give the blessing to Ishmael. That's what he wanted to do. He was like, God, why do all that? Why make me have a child at 100 years old? Why not just give the blessing to Ishmael, right? Who I had through Hagar, right? Verse 19, then God said, yes, but your wife Sarah will bear you a son, and you will call him Isaac. I will establish my covenant with him as an everlasting covenant for his descendants after him. So again, we know that for what we know, Abraham had two sons, Ishmael, and was going to have Isaac, but had Ishmael. But God says, I'm going to establish my covenant with Isaac because your wife is Sarah, right? I'm going to establish my covenant with him, right? And as for Ishmael, I have heard you, right? I will surely bless him. So he like, I hear what you're saying, Abraham. I'm going to bless Ishmael too, but I'm going to establish my covenant with Isaac, right? I will make him fruitful and will greatly increase his numbers. He will be the father of 12 rulers, and I will make him into a great nation. So that's what's going to come out of Ishmael, 12 great rulers, right? Verse 21 of Genesis chapter 17. But my covenant will I establish with Isaac, whom Sarah will bear to you by this time next year. When he had finished speaking with Abraham, God went up from him. Verse 23, on that very day, Abraham took his son Ishmael and all those born in his household or bought with his money, every male in his household, and circumcised them as God told him. Again, Abraham was very obedient. God told him to do something. That man just did it. He went and did it, right? Abraham was 99 years old when he was circumcised, and his son Ishmael was 13. And Abraham and his son Ishmael were both circumcised on that very day. And every male in Abraham's household, including those born in his household or bought from a foreigner, was circumcised with him, right? So that was a commandment that he gave to Abraham. Hey, you and all your the males you have with you in your family, all the ones that's been bought, you got to circumcise them, Got to circumcise them, and everybody else after that must be circumcised, right? So we are in Genesis chapter 18. The Lord appeared to Abraham near the great trees of Mamre. Yes, for sure, Jacinta. For sure. For sure. Because again, you get, he was really, God was coming down and like, talking to them like that. So the presence of God was definitely different back then. You know what I mean? But definitely great faith. The Lord appeared to Abraham near the great trees of Mamre while he was sitting at the entrance to his tent in the heat of the day. Abraham looked up and saw three men standing nearby. When he saw them, he hurried from the entrance of his tent to meet them and bowed low to the ground. He said, "If I have found favor in your eyes, my Lord, do not pass your servant by. Let a little water be brought, and then you may all wash your feet and rest under this tree. Let me get you something to eat so you can be refreshed and then go on your way. Now that you have come to your servant." "Very well," they answered. "Do as you say." So Abraham hurried into the tent to Sarah. "Quick," he said, "get 3 seahs of the finest flour and knead it and bake some bread." Then he ran to the herd and selected a choice tender calf and gave it to the servant who hurried to prepare it. He then brought some curds and milk and the calf that had been prepared and set these before them. While they ate, he stood near them under a tree. "Where's your wife Sarah?" they asked. "There in the tent," he said. Then one of them said, "I will surely return to you about this time next year, and Sarah, your wife, will have a son." Right? So God had told these men something, talking about how she was going to have a son. Now Sarah was listening at the entrance to the tent, which was behind him. Abraham and Sarah were very old, and Sarah passed the age of childbearing, excuse me. So Sarah laughed to herself as she thought, "After I'm worn out and my Lord is old, will I now have this pleasure?" Right? So they both laughed. Remember when Abraham found out that when God told Abraham that he's going to have a child at 99 years old, he laughed. When Sarah heard that she was going to have a child, she did what? She laughed. So that laughter is about to have a significance to it. All right. Verse 13. Then the Lord said to Abraham, "Why did Sarah laugh and say, 'Will I really have a child now that I'm old?' Is anything too hard for the Lord?" Man, I love that verse right there. Is anything too hard for the Lord? See, God will do certain things just to show you that he is in control. He is going to do certain things to just let you know he is in control. He's going to do God loves to do the impossible. God loves to show out. He loves to show his glory. He loves to do that. He loves to make people think that's impossible, God. That's why they laugh. And God's like, "But I am the Almighty God. Watch me do the impossible. With man is possible. With man it's impossible, but with God all things are possible." Right? So he's like, "I'm going to do things that man don't even believe is possible. Watch this. Boom." And that does what? That increases your faith in him. When you watch him do the supernatural, you watch him do things you never thought would happen. And that's why he says, "Is there anything too hard for the Lord? I will return to you at the appointed time next year, and Sarah will have a son." Right? Yes, amen. Sarah was afraid. So she lied and said, "I did not laugh." But he said, "Yes, you did laugh." Right? So she tried to lie to God. Right? She said, "I didn't laugh." He's like, "You did. You did laugh, Sarah." Right? Verse 16. When the men got up to leave, they looked down towards Sodom, and Abraham walked along with them to see them on their way. Then the Lord said, "Shall I hide from Abraham? Shall I hide from Abraham what I'm about to do? Abraham will surely become a great and powerful nation, and all nations of the earth will be blessed through him. For I have chosen him, so that he will direct his children and his household after him to keep the way of the Lord by doing what is right and just, so that the Lord will bring about for Abraham what he has promised him." All right, verse 20. Then the Lord said, "The outcry against Sodom and Gomorrah is so great and their sin so grievous that I will go down and see if what they have done is bad as the outcry that have reached me. If not, I will know." Right? Verse 22. The men turned away and went toward Sodom, but Abraham remained standing before the Lord. Then Abraham approached him and said, Will you sweep away the righteous with the wicked? What if there are 50 righteous people in the city? Will you really sweep it away and not spare the place for the sake of 50 righteous people?" So Abraham is about to start bargaining with God. And he's basically saying, like, "Okay, but God, there's some righteous people in Sodom and Gomorrah. Are you going to destroy the whole land and with the righteous people with the wicked? Like, God, let's talk this out," right? So in verse 25 it says, "Far be it from it to do such a thing, to kill the righteous with the wicked," right? Treating the righteous and the wicked alike. Far be it from you. Will not the judge of all the earth do right? The Lord said, if I find 50 righteous people in the city of Sodom, I will spare the place for their sake. Then Abraham spoke up again. Now that I have been so bold as to speak to the Lord, though I am nothing but dust and ashes, what if the number of the righteous is 5 less than 50? Will you destroy the whole city for the lack of 5 people? If I find 45 people, 45 there, he said, I will not destroy it. So again, him and God going back and forth, just bargaining, you know what I mean? Once again, he spoke to him. What if only 40 are found there? He said, for the sake of 40, I will not do it. Then he said, may the Lord not be angry, but let me speak. What if only 30 can be found there? He answered, I will not do it if I find 30 there. So God is basically saying, okay, if I find 30 righteous people in Sodom and Gomorrah, I won't destroy the city, right? He said, for the sake of 20, I will not destroy it. Then he said, may the Lord not be angry, but let me speak just once more. What if only 10 can be found there? He answered, for the sake of 10, I will not destroy it. When the Lord had finished speaking with Abraham, he left and Abraham returned home. Man, Abraham had a strong relationship with God that you can sit there and bargain with God and go back and forth. Like, God, come on, what if it's 10 people there? Will you destroy it, right? So Genesis chapter 19 and verse 1. I really just start doing these, Jacinta. I really start doing these lives. They're really gonna be random, honestly. It'll probably be very random. But they will be recorded though, Jacinta. So you can always come back and rewatch them. But just make sure you subscribe to me. Make sure you subscribe, have your notifications set on when I go live. But this will be recorded, so you can always come back and watch them. But my normal Bible studies that I do are on Mondays and Wednesdays and Fridays at 6 p.m. Eastern time. I go live here on YouTube and also on other platforms as well. So yeah, 6 p.m. Eastern time, Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays, you can catch my Bible studies that I do while I'm breaking down certain topics or just, breaking down certain, scriptures and things like that. But while I'm on here, it'll be very random. I'm just going to be reading through the whole Bible. Again, I'm going to just try to get through the whole Bible itself. So just a lot of reading on this one. Genesis chapter 19. Sodom and Gomorrah is going to be destroyed. And it says the two angels, right? Oh, from Australia. Okay, from Australia. Yeah, like I said, just make sure you subscribe, set those notifications when I go live. The two angels arrived at Sodom in the evening, and Lot was sitting in the gateway of the city. When he saw them, he got up to meet them and bowed down with his face to the ground. My lords, he said, please turn aside to your servant's house. You can wash your feet and spend the night, and then go on your way early in the morning. No, they answered, we will spend the night in the square. But he insisted so strongly that they go with him and enter his house. He prepared a meal for them, baking bread without yeast, and they ate. Before they had gone to bed, all the men from every part of the city of Sodom, both young and old, surrounded the house. They called to Lot, where are the men who came to you tonight? Bring them out to us so that they can have sex with them, right? That's how wicked these men were in Sodom, that they wanted to get it on with the angels. That lets you know how beautiful the angels were. But these men were so wicked. They said, bring these men out so we can have sex with them. I mean, come on now. Verse 6 of Genesis chapter 19. Lot went outside to meet them and shut the door behind him and said, no, my friends, don't do this wicked thing, right? That's why God wanted to destroy Sodom and Gomorrah. It was so wicked, right? Look, I have 2 daughters who have never slept with a man. Let me bring them out to you, and you can do what you like with them. But don't do anything to these men, for they have come under the protection of my roof. Get out of our way, they replied. This fellow came here as a foreigner, and now he wants to play the judge. We'll treat you worse than them. They kept bringing pressure on Lot and moved forward to break down the door. Right, but the men inside reached out and pulled Lot back into the house and shut the door. Then they struck the man who at the door, the house, the young and old, with blindness, so they could not find the door. Struck him with blindness, man. The 2 men said to Lot, do you have anyone else here? Right, again, these 2 men are angels, right? Do you have anyone else here? And again, those angels put blindness on the men. Do you have anyone else here? Sons-in-law, sons or daughters, anyone else in the city who belongs to you? Get them out of here, because we are going to destroy this place. Then the outcry to the Lord against his people is so great that he sent us to destroy it. So Lot went out and spoke to his sons-in-law, who were pledged to marry his daughters. He said, hurry and get out of the place, because the Lord is about to destroy the city. But his sons-in-law thought he was joking. So he's trying to tell his sons-in-law, hey, y'all, we got to get up out of here. The Lord about to destroy the city. These boys like, father-in-law, man, chill out. Ain't nobody finna destroy Sodom and Gomorrah, bro. You tripping. So again, they thought it was a joke. He like, all right, well, y'all can stay here. We out of here. All right, verse 15. When the coming of dawn, the angels, right, urged Lot, saying, hurry, take your wife and your daughters who are here, or you'll be swept away with the city when the city is punished, right? He like, hurry up and get up out of here. I'm about to destroy the city, right? Right, but they didn't know that. They didn't know they didn't know nothing about that. When he hesitated, the man grasped his hand and the hands of his wife and his two daughters and led them safely out of the city, for the Lord was merciful to them. As soon as they as soon as they had brought them out, one of them said, flee your lives. Don't look back. Don't anywhere in the plain. Don't stop anywhere in the plain. Flee to the mountains or you will be swept away. So that was an order. Don't look back. Don't come back. Don't, no, just go. Flee to the mountains. Do not look back. Don't look back. Verse 18, but Lot said to them, no, my lords, please. Your servant has found favor in your eyes, and you have shown great kindness to me in sparing my life. But I can't flee to the mountains. This disaster will overtake me, and I will die. Look, here's a town near enough to run to, and it is small. Let me flee there. It is very small, isn't it? Then my life will be spared. He said to him, very well, I grant this request too. I will not overthrow the town you speak of, but flee there quickly, because I cannot do anything until you reach it. That's why the town was called Zor. By the time Lot reached Zor, the sun had risen over the land. Then the Lord rained down burning sulfur on Sodom and Gomorrah from the Lord out of the heavens. Thus he overthrew those cities and the entire plain, destroying all those living in the cities and also the vegetation of the land. But Lot's wife looked back, and she became a pillar of salt. But Lot's wife looked back, and she became a pillar of salt. She was looking too much back on her past. She was looking back on her past. That's what a lot of people do too. They want to look back on their past and dwell on it and be like, man, I wish life was still like that. No, you got to be looking forward to what God got for you in front of you. God got new blessings right there in front of you, but we too busy. We keep looking back what happened in 2025. We still thinking about what happened in 2015, 2005, 1995. No, we cannot be looking on our past. We got to move forward, right? She became a pillar of salt. She was like, man, I'm gonna miss this place. God got some more blessings for you. He about to give you a whole new place, right? Right. That's what she liked her past life. She liked her past life more. So that's a great lesson. Forget the past, right? Forget the past. So we are in verse 27. We in verse 27. Early the next morning, Abraham got up and returned to the place where he had stood before the Lord. He looked down toward Sodom and Gomorrah, toward all the land of the plain, and he saw dense smoke rising from the land, like smoke from a furnace. So when God destroyed the cities of the plain, he remembered Abraham, and he brought Lot out of the catastrophe that overthrew the cities where Lot had lived. So Lot was saved for Abraham's sake. All right. Verse 30, Lot and his two daughters left Zor and settled in the mountains, for he was afraid to stay in Zor. He and his two daughters lived in a cave. One day the older daughter said to the younger, our father is old, and there is no man around here to give us children, as is the custom all over the earth. Let's go to our father, drink wine, and then sleep with him and preserve our family line through him. So this is why they had to do this. Because they like, well, if we don't do nothing with our father, then we're going to be extinct. We won't have no family line. Ain't no man around here. All our people been destroyed. We living in a cave. It's just us three. We got to do something so our family can live on, right? That night they got their father to drink wine. The older daughter went in and slept with him. He was not aware of it when she lay down or when she got up. The next day the older daughter said to the younger, last night I slept with my father. Let's get him to drink wine again tonight, and you go in and sleep with him so we can preserve our family line through our father. So they got their father drunk to drink wine that night also, and the younger daughter went in and slept with him. Again, he was not aware of it when she lay down or when she got up. So both of Lot's daughters became pregnant by their father. The older daughter had a son, and she named him Moab. He is the father of the Moabites today. The younger daughter also had a son, and she named him Ben-Ami. He is the father of the Ammonites today, right? So they had to preserve their family line, right? They had to preserve that family line. All right, so now we are in Genesis chapter 20. I think I'm going to read all the way till I get to the birth of Isaac, and then I'll stop right there. We've been on for almost an hour too, so we're going to end here soon. So Genesis chapter 20. Right, that was God's command back then. Again, God's command to Abraham, to Noah, to hey, be fruitful, multiply, and fill the earth. You got to fill the earth. So that was just God's purpose, to fill the earth, though. Now Abraham moved on from there into the region of Negev. Again, we're in Genesis chapter 20, and lived between Kadesh and Shur. For a while he stayed in Gerar, and there Abraham said of his wife Sarah, "She is my sister." Then Abimelech, king of Gerar, sent for Sarah and took her. And God came to Abimelech in a dream one night and said to him, "You are as good as dead because of the woman you have taken. She is a married woman." See, God did not play about Abraham. He did not play about Abraham. If God had to go to another man in his dream and say, you a dead man, you about to put that woman back, you messing with the wrong woman." Verse 4, now Abimelech had not gone near her. So he said, "Lord, will you destroy an innocent nation? Did he not say to me, she is my sister? And didn't she also say he is my brother? I have done this with a clear conscience and clean hands," right? So again, Abraham pulled the same finesse that he did in Egypt. Said, "Hey, you're gonna have to be my sister again, or else they're gonna unalive me." Right. And so the man was like, wait, I didn't know that was his sister or whatever. Don't do that. I didn't know if that was his wife. I thought it was his sister. Right? So he was saying, "God, I got clean hands." Verse 6, then God said to him in a dream, "Yes, I know you did this with a clear conscience, and so I have kept you from sinning against me. That's why I did not let you touch her. Now return the man's wife, for he is a prophet." Abraham was a prophet. "And he will pray for you, and you will live. But if you do not return her, you may be sure that you and all who belong to you will die." Early the next morning, Abimelech summoned all his officials. When he told them all that had happened, that they were very much afraid. Now you got to think, okay, you might be thinking, well, why did this happen? Because again, if Abraham tells these men that, "Hey, this is my wife," boom, automatic, "Oh, you're dead, it's over with." But going through this process, right, of him taking Abraham's wife or taking Sarah, God came to the man. God came to Abimelech, or whatever his name is, came to him, right? And now he knew, like, whoa, who are you? Oh, I'm God. I'm the Most High God. Put that woman back, and don't touch him either, though. Allow him to leave this place too without you touching him, though, right? So verse 9 of Genesis chapter 20. Then Abimelech called Abraham and said, "What have you done to us? How have I wronged you that you have brought such great guilt upon me and my kingdom? You have done things to me that should never be done." And Abimelech said to Abraham, "What was your reason doing this?" Abraham said, "I said to myself, there is surely no fear of God in this place, and they will kill me because of my wife." Right? So you see that right there? He says, "Surely there is no fear of God in this place." So God had to come put a little fear in your heart, Abimelech, so you can tell you and your man about who God is. Now it's some fear of God up in here, right? Now it's some fear of God, and because you would have killed me because of my wife. So I'm gonna make sure that y'all got the fear of God before I leave this place, and I still got my wife when I leave this place. Verse 12. Besides, she really is my sister, the daughter of my father, though not of my mother, and she became my wife. And when God had me wander from my father's household, I said to her, "This is how you can show your love to me. Everywhere we go, say of me, he is my brother." Then Abimelech brought sheep and cattle and male and female slaves and gave them to Abraham. Right? See, he's just giving Abraham gifts now. He's just giving him gifts now. Right? And he returned Sarah, his wife, to him. And Abimelech said, "My land is before you. Live wherever you like." Man, wherever you go, you get blessed. Live wherever you like. To Sarah, he said, "I'm giving your brother 1,000 shekels of silver. This is to cover the offense against you before all who are with you, and you are completely vindicated." Then Abraham prayed to God, and God healed Abimelech, his wife, and his female slave, so that they could have children again. For the Lord had kept all the women in Abimelech's household from conceiving because of Abraham's wife, Sarah. Dang. So he said, ain't none of these women having children until you give Sarah back. God was not playing. All right, Genesis chapter 21, y'all, and this might be the last verse that we read today. All right, the last chapter that we read, Genesis chapter 21, and it says, "Now the Lord was gracious to Sarah, as he had said, and the Lord did for Sarah what he had promised." God is a God who fulfills promises, right? Sarah became pregnant and bore a son to Abraham in his old age, at the very time God had promised him. Abraham gave the name Isaac to the son Sarah bore him. When his son Isaac was 8 years old, Abraham circumcised him. 8 days old. Abraham circumcised him as God commanded him. Abraham was 100 years old when his son Isaac was born to him. Sarah said, "God has brought me laughter. Everyone who hears about this will laugh with me." And she added, who have said to Abraham and that Sarah would nurse children, yet I have borne him a son in his old age. So, Fun fact: the name Isaac means he laughs. Right? That's what Isaac means. That's why they named him Isaac, for laughter, or he laughs. Because when, again, we talked about when Abraham found out he was going to have a son at 100 years old, he laughed. When Sarah heard that she was going to have a baby at that old age, she laughed. Right? And God was like, "Why are you laughing?" Right? So that's why his name is called Isaac. He laughs. Verse 8: the child grew and was weighing, right? The child grew and was weighing, and the day Isaac was weighing, Abraham had a great feast. But Sarah saw that the son whom Hagar the Egyptian had born to Abraham was mocking, and she said to Abraham, "Get rid of that slave woman and her son, for that woman's son will never share their inheritance with my son Isaac." So Isaac and Ishmael was not getting along, and Sarah didn't like that. The matter distressed Abraham greatly because it concerned his son. But God said to him, "Do not be so distressed about the boy and your slave woman. Listen to whatever Sarah tells you, because it is through Isaac that your offspring will be reckoned." So he's like, "Hey, don't worry about that. Remember, the covenant and the promises are going to go through Isaac. So you're going to have to let Ishmael and them go. I will make the son of the slave into a nation also, because he is your offspring. So I'm going to bless him too, because he's your offspring, Ishmael." Right? Early the next morning, Abraham took food and a skin of water and gave them to Hagar. He set them on her shoulders and then sent her off with the boy. She went her way and wandered in the desert of Beersheba. When the water in the skin was gone, she put the boy under one of the bushes. Then she went off and sat down about a bow shot away, for she thought, I cannot watch the boy die." And she sat there, she began to sob. So she's like, "Dang, I ain't got no more water for this boy. I ain't got nothing to give this boy. I'm a single mom out here in the desert. What am I going to do?" Verse 17. God heard the boy crying, and the angel of God called to Hagar from heaven and said to her, "What is the matter, Hagar? Do not be afraid. God has heard the boy crying as he lies there. Lift the boy up, right? Lift the boy up and take him by the hand, for I will make him into a great nation." Then God opened her eyes, and she saw a well of water. So she went and filled the skin with water and gave the boy a drink. God was with the boy as he grew up. He lived in the desert and became an archer. While he was living in the desert of Paran, his mother got a wife for him from Egypt. So the boy ended up going, Ishmael ended up going very strong to a great nation. He ended up getting married, right? Because he was still the son of Abraham. He just didn't get the covenant though. All right. Verse 22. At that time, Abimelech and Pekah, the commander of his forces, said to Abraham, God is with you in everything you do. Now swear to me here before that you will not deal falsely with me or my children or my descendants. Show to me in the country where you now reside as a foreigner the same kindness I have shown to you." Abraham said, "I swear, bro. Hey, bro, I got you. You show me kindness, I'm going to treat you and your people good. You treated us good, so we're going to do the same for you. I'm going to keep my word." Verse 25. Then Abraham complained to Abimelech about a well of water that Abimelech's servant had seized. But Abimelech said, "I don't know who has done this. You did not tell me, and I heard about it only today." So Abraham brought sheep and cattle and gave to Abimelech, and the two men made a treaty. Abraham set apart 7 ewe lambs from the flock, and Abimelech asked Abraham, "What is the meaning of these 7 ewe lambs you have set apart by themselves?" He replied, "Accept these 7 lambs from my hand as a witness that I dug this well." So that the place was called Beersheba, because the two men swore an oath there. Verse 32. After the treaty had been made at Beersheba, Abimelech and Pekah, the commander of his forces, returned to the land of the Philistines. Abraham planted a tamarisk tree in Beersheba, and there he called on the name of the Lord, the eternal God. And Abraham stayed in the land of the Philistines for a long time. All right, amen, y'all. So, y'all, we read Genesis chapter 7 all the way through Genesis chapter 21. A lot of it was about Noah. We read a lot about Noah and his sons, Ham, Japheth, and Shem. Right, and then we talked obviously about Abraham. We talked about his wife Sarah. We talked about Ishmael. Right, we talked about Isaac, and we see that obviously through Abram's name was changed to Abraham. Sarai's name was changed to Sarah. He would be the father of nations. She would be the mother of nations. Right, but God said, even through Ishmael, God was like, "No, no, no, no. I'm going to make the promises and the covenant. I'm going to give that to Isaac, right, for your wife Sarah. But I'm going to bless Ishmael, but he just don't get the covenant. I'm going to make my covenant with your son Isaac." So next time, y'all, we will begin and we discuss and talk about Genesis chapter 22. We're going to get to Isaac, and we're going to start talking about Isaac and his descendants and who would get the promise in the covenant after Isaac. So I hope y'all enjoyed this Bible study reading, man. Again, I'll let y'all know when I'm on again. Make sure y'all subscribe, like, comment, Set y'all notifications, and I will see y'all next time for another Bible study reading. God bless y'all.